Welcome to the Driven to Succeed Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Olson. And today I'd like to welcome back Candice Amundson from EXP.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Yes, absolutely. Been looking forward to this one because, we had you on last year and we talked about buying investment properties with utilizing different types of funds
hmm
that people don't normally get into and using your like 401ks and IRA funds, right?
Yep.
Essentially rollovers into IRAs to buy property. So it was great. But today we are going to talk a little bit more of your niche and what you really like, even in the last year, how much you've grown your business. And your niche is short-term and mid-term rental properties. So
Yeah.
like your VRBOs or verbos, right? That's how that's technically how they say it, right? And
Yep.
your Airbnbs and so forth.
hmm
So I'm excited, man. This is pretty good. So what can you tell me like some of your, like in the last year, your what you've seen and what kind of products you're using to help your clients?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest thing over the last year, I mean, a lot of realtors said it was a down market for them. And it really was a difficult market. We had to do things very differently. And I had a really great year, had my best year ever. So record breaking year, even in a downturn market. And I think it's because getting into your niches, which I think you've heard before, the riches are in the niches. And it really
Yes.
is.
Yes.
So I said the beginning of the year, I did my business plan and I set aside a certain amount of money from all of the houses I was selling. I said, I'm going to just go all in. I'm going to get really, really good and be an expert at one thing because you can really do one thing very well. If you start kind of spreading out and doing everything, you can't do as well.
Well, and
So,
that's where most realtors come in, right? They're going to try to go across the board, first time home buyers, existing to, multi-family to, whatever else, right?
yeah.
You're trying to capture too much or you just don't know, but the route you took is obviously, I mean, that's a great route.
Yeah. And I really true believe in it. And I think that's where it starts is that if you sit down and you look at the numbers, how much you can make in a long term rental, and you're seeing about three times that amount in a short term, I mean, it just makes
Right.
more sense. Why would I not want to just, go
Right.
ahead and go for it?
Right.
So you have to have a lot of things in place first. You have to find the deals. And that was the other thing. As I said, well, if I'm going to invest and go all in on my niche, I really need to find the best tool. So I found InvestYar, which is by Virilio, and it's a very clean data tool. I do have a subscription, it's a paid subscription. And so I get to offer that to my clients as well. So they can actually go in the tool. There's a link, which we will also give as a freebie to any of the listeners today.
Yeah, you heard that here. We'll get you a freebie on this.
Yeah, so you can go in and you can actually analyze and you can see where the deals are and where your money is going to make money. So that was the first thing. As I said, I got to invest in something that is going to make me the data backed agent, because my clients are coming to me and they already know everything from AirDNA. So if they're smarter than you, what are you going to do?
Well, look at the workflow the workload that just took off of you to actually
Yeah.
try to find this for people. And that's
Yeah.
what you had to do in the past. But now you can do that and you can and give them that tool. So
Yeah.
they're looking up at 10 o'clock at night.
I know. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you're
it's
not looking up at 10 o'clock at night for tomorrow showing, right?
right, that's the thing, and then you're not wasting your time on even the investor themselves. They waste time on going and looking at properties. Well, now we don't do that. I mean, it's really the way of the world. Data is the way that it's driving real estate agents and investors to make decisions. So that was the first thing I said, I need to go all in. I need to, invest in this tool. Also, I've got, coaching from the developer of this tool. So that's really cool. I can come there, bring my deals and say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" They're in a different market than me, so they have
Right.
no idea about my market. So now I'm starting to receive those referrals of people that are just like outpriced in Orlando, Kissimmee, Florida,
Right.
Arizona. So they come here and they're like, "I can really get a property for two or $300,000." And it's
Yes.
like, yeah, and you can cash flow this thing. You can make 100 grand.
Right.
So there's a lot of emerging markets in our, direct area in the Twin Cities. And I've been able to find the deals also on, the realtor side. I've been able to find deals of people that might want to sell because their properties aren't doing well. So they need somebody to come in and really market the potential that this property has using data. So I can come in as a listing agent for these short-term rentals or a buyer's agent because I know what I'm looking for, and I have the data to back it up.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's so Airbnb changed the game on this, right?
Yeah.
For sure. What they came through, and it's funny how they did struggle in the last couple of years since COVID.
Yep,
Yeah,
there was
they had
a
some struggles,
yeah.
but that doesn't mean you still can, from a investor position to buy these properties and make that kind of money, right?
Yeah.
It's, we are one of my loan officers in my branch here. He's got someone that I think they're trying to add their sixth property or the seventh property down in Florida,
Okay.
but they spend like 600 grand, on a property,
Yep.
cash.
Yep.
And then they're putting in like another 150 to $200,000. They're putting PlayStations and, private theaters and like all this
Yeah.
stuff, into the property. So they're 800 grand or, into the property before they, start making that money back.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do that up here per se,
Right.
right?
It's yeah, and I think that's kind of the difference between the saturation. So you're telling an example and a story of the saturation. So
Right.
here we don't have that major market saturation.
Right.
So we do have a little bit, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like a brand new thing.
Sure.
But you're even seeing in the suburb areas that people are doing really well. Cap rates of 30% or higher out in like Elk River, Zimmerman. Anywhere there's a lake,
Yeah.
anywhere there's some kind of destination or somewhere people are going to vacation. Think one thing we learned from COVID is that people are always going to vacation. They never want to miss out on opportunity again. They're just
Right.
going to vacation smarter. So they're going to get together and have multiple families. So, having a home that's a 9-bedroom home,
Mhm.
that's a wonderful investment. And we know, appreciation will likely continue at the
Right.
track it has.
Right.
So it's going to, over time also, really help you. So I really believe in it, but I feel like you really need to see the data and like real clean, real data too. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I've loved about, the tool that I have.
Yeah, well, and getting into that data, that let's talk about like all the different data sets that you actually get.
Mhm.
So, like, what are your top things, that you're looking for when you're getting into that? So,
Yeah. So when I look at it, and of course I need to put in the criteria. So I'll put in like what, down payment you have, what cash you have, if you're financing, that kind of thing, interest rate. So I'll do a full pro forma.
sure,
And then it will usually provide me with an idea of how this property will do. So we usually have a property in mind or an area. I can actually look up hotspot areas of high performers too. So if somebody comes to me and they have no clue, we don't know where to go, we can go to the tool and look up the map and say, let's just look at the high earners and see where they are. And then clearly, like, for example, the Lowry area, you and I both know that area. We know what
right,
happens there. I can tell you a whole story about why it's so important to invest there and why they're high earners, right?
sure,
Other areas, right, in Minneapolis by the hospital. So you and I both know that's a great midterm because of the nurses, So we can tell a story based on what the data shows.
So, and not to get too far off subject on here. So when you talk about by the hospitals and the nurses, are these like traveling nurses that come in?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because that's
or
been, I mean,
families that are coming to
yep,
stay.
yep,
If there's a kind of a longer term stay that they, a person that they're close to,
sure,
or it could be even like residencies, so doctors, students themselves.
right on.
So that can be one whole encompassing area. There's a whole set of different things that can happen. In real estate, a lot of times, we hear about these like home fires and devastations. So sometimes those midterm rentals really serve a purpose for people that are
Yeah,
displaced, so there's a lot of reasons.
yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. And again, going back to your hotspots, finding them that's next to hospitals and so forth.
Mhm.
I never even, not knowing this till now or thinking about it, then you wouldn't think about that too much when you're going
Yeah,
to buy. Because I get people buying investment properties all the time just to rent them out long
yeah,
term,
yeah.
right? and it is different, how we have to calculate like the incomes off of these properties.
Yeah.
So we have to use different products that, because if it's already a short-term rental, or we have to look at what the long-term rental is going to be on there.
Right.
It's
Right.
not because Fannie Freddie, if they're not going to allow, oh well, short-term rental, that's not consistent income, even though it's that
Yeah.
much more.
Right.
We just have to do it different ways. There's different programs like the DSCR
I'm
programs.
glad you brought that up. I was just thinking that when you were saying that, the DSR. So this tool specifically helps with that because there are a lot of instances where, let's say you have a hot tub or you have fireplace, you offer breakfast. So all of these things that you do in this property all have a dollar amount. So
Right.
what we've done is we've taken this data and we've, given it to these appraisers to help them, to say, hey, this is why we're, these are the numbers. So it's interesting. Sometimes a fireplace can add $100 to a nightly rate, depending
Really?
on a market.
Oh,
A washer dryer sometimes will add, if it's pet friendly, that
yeah,
will add
I
sometimes
for
to the.
sure.
So there's a specific graph and a tool that I can show my investors and say, if you do buy a 2 bedroom, so it goes by a bedroom, in this market, 0% of them are pet friendly. They have a washer dryer, they have this, and I can go through all the amenities.
Right.
And I can say, if you just put your property on the market and make it pet friendly, you're going to stand out amongst all the other people.
Keep it.
So
Yeah.
those are little things that people that don't have this tool and aren't analyzing the data, they're not going to really know, so that's something that you want to be able to provide to your client. So a lot of these, outside referrals that I have, these people never step foot in any of these properties. They have no idea what the market is like.
Right.
And I tell them this whole story and they're like, where do I sign? How do we get the property now?
Right.
Here's my money. So, it's something that you have to be ready to go. And so working with an agent like myself, or somebody that has a data tool like this, you can do it a lot faster. You provide them a resource too. So
Right.
they can go at, 10 o'clock at night or midnight.
Right.
That's what
Right.
we're all doing. We're like, I wonder how much this one's worth, or
A hundred
peeping on
percent.
this one. I think also too, to go back to your original question, like what kind of information, I think cap rate is your biggest thing because that's going to take your net operating income divided by the market value. That's how you figure it out. So your cap rate has your expense ratio applied. So a lot of times people use just cash, right, to purchase a property.
Right.
Well, their expense ratio might be a little bit different than
Sure.
somebody that's financing at
Correct.
20% down. So it doesn't tell the whole story until you're using cap rates. And I think
Right.
people are starting to know that now. They're going away from the gross ROI. You see
Yeah.
a lot of that
Yeah.
in Air DNA,
Yeah.
but that doesn't tell the whole story. So
Right.
I think that's what's important about this data too.
Again, and this is why you are the expert, right? And this is why you have the right tools. This is why you can advise people the right way to do this,
Yeah.
right? I've heard over the years, specifically when Airbnb came out, I heard of people literally going to city and renting apartments
Yeah.
and then turning around and until they got caught.
Right.
But short term, putting people with short term,
Yeah.
um rentals in there, right? And like kids that were like 21 years old were just like banking money off of
Oh,
this
yeah.
stuff, you
Yeah.
know?
They're so smart. I
Yeah.
wish I would have known.
Oh God, me too. I mean, I've spent so much money the wrong way.
Yeah.
But so going back to you being the expert and really digging into this and having those tools, and this is why people have to get a hold of you and like talk to you about it. Because like when I first saw it, I was like, wow, you don't, if you're just in the beginning stages of like, hey, I'm gonna buy an investment property and going to I actually have someone in mind for you got to talk to right away because he's always chomping at the bit to buy a property, but he's always putting long-term rental people in there
Oh, sure.
and so forth because he's got a number of them, and he's got one, I think they literally have paid off the house. I think they've been in there since like 2006 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Yes, and they literally paid off the house for him.
Cool.
Great people, and they like, I think they mow their own lawn, they do everything. But
Yeah.
long story short, um this is why, having your knowledge being able to bring that to the table. And of course you do other transactions as well,
Yeah,
but this is like, I just, what from you, what you've done on social media, how you've grown your reach, what you have for your expertise, and then looking at all of this stuff from these investor opportunities. I mean, so you're licensed in Minnesota, right?
yes,
Yes.
yep,
And you can even go to the North Shore and so forth. And
yep,
I know you had mentioned that it's kind of saturated up there already.
yep.
So there's different kind of rules up there, but locally there's plenty of opportunities, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And I think I'm finding a lot of my local clients are, talking about St. Paul a lot lately. I think we all know about the rent stabilization and with the long terms. So that can pose sometimes a little bit of an opportunity for other strategies. So I've been talking about some of that with my clients too.
Well, let's just talk about that. Many people don't, again, this episode is really for people that are getting into investing, or maybe they have investments that they're doing long term on.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. What St. Paul, they capped, right? Minneapolis did too, right?
So
Or
the yeah, and
long-term rental.
yeah, so it's a long-term rental market, and so St. Paul has a 3%. There's all the guidelines. Of course, you can go to the website. I can get you a resource for that, and just talks about how there's a limit on how much you can increase the rent every year. So even though you do, let's say you update, $100,000 in the property, and it is actually worth a higher market value for rent, you aren't going to be able to do that. So if you as an agent don't know about these rules or moratoriums, like we had that in Maple Grove about a year ago. It ended, I think, July of 23, but that was another one where there weren't any allowable rentals at all. So you have to know,
Yeah.
or if they're in an HOA,
So
that's
so
another thing.
break that down a little bit for me. So if somebody's so let's say someone's lease is up, and now you got a new person in. Can you
Mhm.
rent that now at a higher rate, more than the 3%? Or is it only for the people that are staying in the property?
Yeah, so if there's a rent history, as far as I know, if there's a history of it, you can only raise it 3%. So if you, let's say you have an outside condition, like you put in a lot of work,
Mm,
you can actually go talk to the city about it.
okay,
There's a process. I can't remember the like legal name of it.
sure.
But there's an application on the website for St. Paul, and you can go and talk to them about it to negotiate and talk about that. But yeah, you're really not just going to be able to acquire a property that has been getting a certain income and then just raise it like 10%. You're not going to be able to do that. So there
So
are
it's not based on like the lease agreements that you have with the person. It's what the history of the rent
Yeah,
is,
so if you
right?
already have, let's say you have already been having a tenant in that property, and then this went into play, the whole law went in, then you would have to follow that too,
Right.
unless you can provide that there's been significant upgrades or updates to the home or some reason that you would need to really raise that. So there is a way
Is it
you
is
can.
is one of the reasons because the taxes went up more in St. Paul? Is that a good reason or
I
no?
don't know. I guess I'm not sure exactly why it happened. I learn about these things,
Sure.
because that's the first thing. Like I'll get an investor client and they need to know, can I purchase this property and do this?
Yeah.
So you have to know what the rules are.
Yeah, no, and I kind of kid a little bit on that, but a lot of people is why is my rent going up, right? And
Mhm.
same thing is like, why did my mortgage payment go up? Because, well, I
Yeah.
escrow taxes and insurance doubled this year, right?
Yep.
This last year and last 18 months, and taxes went up crazy in a lot of places, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, you're a landlord, but you can only cap it at 3%,
Yeah.
but your costs might have went over 3%,
Right.
right? So
Right.
you're just kind of, and that's the deterrent for like, okay, why would I buy an investment property? long
Yeah.
term.
Yeah.
But
So that's what I'm hearing from some people is that,
mhm,
or they're, sometimes you overhear, you're talking with another realtor and you say, yeah, they're looking at multifamily in St. Paul. And then the realtor says, well, why would you want to do that? They got the rent stabilization. I thought, well, we're planning to do midterm, long term or short term strategy instead. So that it's not really affected by
right.
that. So that's one thing that, is kind of a strategy. You have to just know what the laws are and know which strategy you're going to go with the property. But I truly believe that short-term and midterm rentals are the best and fastest way to make money
Mhm.
investing in real estate. I'm sure other people may have different opinions about that. That's just my opinion, and I base it on the data that I can see in this market.
Well, you have a proven track record, number one.
Yeah.
So there's that. I mean, it always goes back to, it's funny because when I used to work in the car industry, I worked for Toyota. It's like, well, do you drive a Toyota? Yes.
Yeah.
Now there'd be other guys that were like, I got a BMW, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so you drive and do what you do, and so forth. And when you're helping your clients and you're showing, and this, and they're making, and they're coming back to you. I mean, that's a win for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, which is so awesome. What would be anything, that you would say, because we were talking about, like, you talked a little bit about the cap rate finder, gross ROI. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, or like, well, going back to maybe even just showing like what months are the most profitable, what months are, that gives you all
Oh,
that
sure.
information, right?
Yeah, so that was one thing too that I mentioned when we first talked about it is that it does have an ability to show you your least profitable month. So it may not be your busiest and least profitable might not be they could be the same thing actually.
Right.
So let's say July is your busiest month, you have the most turnover, the most rentals, but you have a lot of short night stays. Then you're looking at maybe you take a whole month and you lease to one person that.
Uh,
So you might have less expenses covering for that. So it shows you when is the least busiest time so that you can do repairs.
So yeah, to dig into that just a little bit further, what you're talking about is when you're turning them over, you got expenses to
Right.
clean, right?
Yep.
And so forth. You have those expenses, so then it's not as profitable as having somebody there for a month, right?
Right.
Not
And then
cleaning
you
it.
also have the potential where the more people that are, you renting out the nights, then potentially those customers could cause damages too.
Right,
So if you have one group of like one family, for instance, we'll just use a family as an example, and they're staying there for 30 days, they're more likely going to take better care of the property if they're going to stay there a little bit
right,
longer than somebody just staying for 2 nights.
right.
So that's one thing that,
Throwing a party,
yeah, yeah, you could have, the greater risk for the parties and
right,
things to happen and more repairs. More supplies get used that way a lot of times too. So just overall, your overall expenses usually will increase the more people that you have staying. So that's going to show you, your least profitable month might be July where you have, all these people coming in and out. Your least profitable or your maybe your busiest month might be August, but that's just you're busy or not profit. So it kind of shows you when you should schedule maintenance, when you should occupy the property too. So sometimes you think, well, when can I use my own property? When's a good time to do that? I don't want to miss out on these,
right,
high rate nights.
right,
So it shows you kind of a roadmap of with the data when you should actually occupy it, when you should do maintenance. There's one that I'm looking at too. Another thing that helps is actually doing it yourself. So when you start investing yourself, you start to kind of run into things where you're like, how do you do this? How do you do that? So then it helps me kind of tell people, well, this is what happened to me. I got in this situation and I thought, maybe I should call an interview. I was really worried about property management was kind of my biggest thing. I don't have time to be worrying about things and I need to have somebody and I might have to pay a top dollar to do that. So I got on the phone, I interviewed all the short-term rental companies in the, local area and Evolve was another one that's like kind of a national one. And you just have to like get in and start doing it yourself to learn kind of
right, right.
tricks and trades.
So that was leading me into the next question. You just hit on it, right? So you have There are companies out there to help you manage the
Yeah.
property management companies. So you're
Yep.
not the one that's going and cleaning it, right?
Right.
You're getting a cleaner. They got the right cleaners. They got, I'm sure they're
Yep.
licensed, bonded, insured, right?
Yeah, usually. And so some companies will just have partnerships. And then, so it kind of depends. So you can go from, like, for instance, 10% of your booking can go towards a property management. They might just do like putting it on all the platforms. So they would do like Verbo, Airbnb, Booking.com, TripAdvisor, and then also Furnish Finder. So those are like the five that I always tell people you want to be on all these platforms. So they put them on there, they take the pictures, they do all the marketing. So they do that part of it. But then if you have like a customer that can't get in, they need their code to the door or something happens, they also have like a concierge service that will help answer questions so that you're not the one dealing with these like 10 p.m. I can't get in,
Right,
those
right.
kinds of things.
Yeah,
And then sometimes they'll just have partnerships where they say, here's cleaning companies that we have partnerships with.
sure.
They don't really like work directly with them. They're
Right.
just, here's some recommendation.
So it just depends on what your level of, comfort in paying in property management, right?
Yeah.
Or you don't want to take if you're local, do you want to take some of this stuff on your own,
Right.
whatnot.
The
But
other company that I really like, I've talked with the owner, is Mini Stay. It's very commonly known. You've probably seen advertisements for just like the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and they're really great. Their percentage or their cost is a little bit higher. It's like more like 24%. These guys are going to offer branded popcorn from the popcorn company down the road
right.
and coffee
Well,
locally,
you,
and
you get
they're
what
going
you
to
pay for.
do right. So they're going to really help you stand out. They really take pride in, having people go directly to their website to book. So they can sometimes take away some of the fees that you would see on the platforms like Airbnb. I mean, you're still going to have like cleaning fees and taxes and stuff like that. But a lot of times you can find a company that's local that's going to kind of go above and beyond. So if you really want to just be hands off, the cleaning company comes right in, they clean, they bill your client once a month. I mean, or yourself if it's your own personal. To me, I'm willing to pay
Right,
that
right.
little extra money.
Sure.
And I also like the short-term rental because you get paid right away. With long-term, you can sometimes be chasing a $1,500 check for
Right, right,
days after,
right.
you've paid the
They're
mortgage, you've
dodging
paid your,
you.
yeah, exactly. So I feel like it's just, I like it. It's more fast paced.
Yeah.
And as long as I feel like as long as you have the people in line to help you, having the right insurance person so that they have riders and coverage for anything, somebody hurting themselves at your property or something being damaged so that you have coverage, it's the biggest thing. You need to cover your asset. And so I think that's the biggest thing. Once you have that, you can, really go from there. You don't have to worry.
Right. Well, and this is why people, if you are interested in this is why you got to talk to Candace. I mean, she just gave us 27 minutes worth of like, just kind of the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that you could probably dig into this and that, but we're just talking about these things. There's, you got to see this for yourself. And this goes back to just real estate. I mean, it's real estate is going to appreciate over time, period.
Hmm.
Right. So short-term rentals make more money on it, short-term, long-term, than you could just renting out, chasing. I had people that that I've talked to and they're like, okay, I want to sell, I want to rent my house out now. But the rents aren't like cash flowing, right?
Yeah.
Not like, well, there's, some cases where like, hey, you're going to be negative. Well, I can raise the rent over the next couple of years. I'm like, well, you're going to go in the hole. You got to cash flow something, in
Yeah.
my opinion,
Hmm.
right? And then they come to realization is like, yeah, I mean, you don't want to lose 6 grand. And then if you get a bad renter in, or if you're trying to pay a property management company to get the renters in the first
Yeah.
place, now you're really going backwards. So you don't want to do that per se for that situation. But I mean, if you're talking, you know, only making $300 to $500 on a rental if you're
Right.
financing it, versus short term where you could be 3x, 4x
Yeah. Probably easily. Yeah.
of that.
3 to 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And well, that makes way more sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so don't be afraid of it, and then I think too with long-term rentals, I have a lot of contacts. I do have a really great property management company locally here. So if people are struggling and they want to just keep doing the long-term game, that's okay too.
Right.
I do have, like I said, people that they can talk to. But yeah, if people are interested in getting in at, I think, a low acquisition cost, I think this is a great market for that,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah. Because I do feel like, right now, the values of homes have been going up. It just hasn't been going up
Mm-hmm.
as much, right?
Yep.
Specifically as what it did in 20 to 2022.
Mm-hmm.
But we see a point of interest drop over the next 18 months to 2 points. I mean, those values are going to go way up.
Yeah. Yep.
So get in now.
Yep.
I'm always saying that the best time to ever buy was 5 years ago. So today is the best time to buy, right?
Yep. It is.
Um, I want to get some of your contacts and because I'm making a very important person page, a VIP page for my Facebook. So I'm trying to get all these different professionals in there. So invite all my clients to that
Yeah.
page so that they have the access to those. So we'll talk about that later.
Cool.
But Candace, as always, it's great to have you on. Like you're a wealth of knowledge, and specifically in this niche, this is great. I mean, and I just know your level of how you deal with your clients,
Hmm.
and how you care about your clients, and like how you've got these other projects. Do you want to talk about any of your other projects, personal stuff, before we go, or
Yeah, I mean the biggest update with the charity. So that's
yeah,
that's the biggest thing. So shout out to Alexandra House. They're a domestic violence shelter here in Blaine, Minnesota. And I personally have used their services and just absolutely love them. And one of the things that we lack, I think, nationwide is the ability to have people bring their pets with them. So pet friendly accommodations to help people, leave situations and safely do so. And so we've been trying to get this big grant to make this shelter friendly, and we were turned down. So it was a big sad, we were really sad. However, we picked ourselves back up. We knew that, we had done a lot of work to get there. And so we're just going to find the right people.
yeah. So anybody listening to this podcast, anybody that's got lots of money, you get a hold of Candace because that your business plan and your idea is I mean to help people in domestic abuse
Hmm.
cases and that have their kids and their pets all not get torn apart, but be able
Yeah.
to leave these situations. That's what that's really about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of props to you to get that going, get that set up. And hopefully that can come through for you here in the near future.
Yeah, yeah, we're in the steps right now. I'm working on getting an MOU. So there has to be a partnership with a shelter and a veterinarian. So luckily with my background,
Right?
I know so many veterinarians, and so I'm sure I won't have any problems with
Sure.
people putting their hands
Sure.
up. So yeah, so we're a work in progress. I wouldn't doubt if it happened by the end of this year. I really we have the Hope Gala too, which is the end of March. That's I think it's the 24th or 25th. I can't remember. It's a Saturday. But that's where we, get greedy as
Yeah,
galas
right.
are, and we ask the people for
Like, hey,
money.
you gotta
So
you gotta raise that money. It is
yeah,
it is what it is. I know all about trying to raise money, and mine's different.
yeah.
Mine's totally different. But I wish you all of the best in that,
Thank you.
and your continued success in real estate. I mean, it's been a pleasure just watching over the last 12 months what you've done. Like I said, reiterate that. Um, but is there anything else you wanted to add today? Is anything at this point?
Just it's an honor to be, asked to come back on the podcast. I think that's pretty cool.
Oh,
And then also just if any listeners would like my data tool, it's free for you. It is a subscription base, so I do pay for that. If there's any realtors that are interested, I can, get them that information. But yeah, we'll put the link
awesome.
in the show notes, and that way people can really just take a look for themselves.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming on. And I want to thank everybody out here. Please like and subscribe. I'll have all the contacts for Candace and the links that she has. And please reach out.